I don't know why this is in black and white. I mean, you already saw that I chose cosmic yellow for the Triumph's bodywork in the thumbnail. But more importantly, that means I now have all the pieces I need to finish my Speed Triple 1200 and take it for a shakedown ride. I'm making it sound quick and easy, but I still need to flush the engine of any remaining metal pieces from that broken crank cover.
There is a scratch on the headlight here, rust on the chain, it still has the wrong coolant in it, the key battery is low,
and of course someone did a dodgy fix on the brake caliper pistons, so now I have to fix that. But hey, that's what you expect when you find a cheap 2023 Super Naked on Facebook Marketplace, right? So let's get to it.
Everything on this project has taken longer and cost more than I expected. From the forks that took 3 months to repair to the damaged frame that had to be replaced.
But to be honest, I don't want to rush it. It's less enjoyable and I don't want to cut corners. But if you hadn't already noticed, the original plan of fixing this for cheap has gone out the window. But hopefully today all of that effort becomes worthwhile. The next step is basically to run this engine and do a couple of oil changes to hopefully flush out any remaining metal pieces inside of it. But obviously to do that we need fuel, and in the last video we didn't have a fuel tank to do so. But today we do, and you might have noticed that the giant dent in the tank is also gone.
In fact, the two little dents from the handlebars have also been repaired, and you can't even tell where they were.
So now it technically holds more fuel without the big dent, and it was much cheaper than buying a brand new tank.
These tail pieces also had cracks in them, which Scarlett Customs was also able to fix. I was just going to use a band-aid, but he did it properly.
And since we had to repaint due to the repairs, why not repaint the whole bike?
The original matte grey with Lumo yellow accents was fine, but I don't think it does the bike justice.
I know a lot of you saw this color coming all along because I kept admiring the cosmic yellow Speed Triple on the floor at Triumph Johannesburg, but mine is slightly different. I knew I wanted this color all along, so right at the start of this project, Triumph lent me this piece from a Street Triple as a color sample, but all of the graphics you see in black are painted on. They're not just decals under the clear coat like on a stock Triumph. It's much nicer in my opinion, but harder to get perfect.
The graphics also look slightly different. These side panels, for example, don't have the two-tone grey and black in the graphics, they're just black. And the logo on the tank isn't the text logo like this bike originally had, it's the triangular logo similar to the updated 2025 Speed Triples.
The back side of every panel has also been painted and clear coated, unlike stock parts. Of course the backside hasn't been polished because you're never going to see it, but according to Naldo, the smooth texture will catch less dirt and make it easier to clean the backside of your panels. You can tell he's a neat freak because he actually believes that I'm going to clean the backside of my panels. But that is enough worrying about appearances. What really matters is horsepower, so let's flush this engine. Now, last time we fired this bike up after replacing the broken crank cover, it wouldn't build oil pressure and gave me a warning on the dash. Low oil pressure warning. Apparently that is a common quirk with these bikes after doing an oil change, so here is the solution according to Triumph. Step 1. Disconnect the fuel or do something to stop the bike from firing up. Our tank doesn't even have a fuel pump at the moment, so I think we're safe here.
Step 2. Loosen off the oil filter a bit, which seemed way too tight.
This is where I got stuck last time because my useless filter removal tool couldn't get the job done. So I bought a new one.
Step 2.5 is a bonus step. Don't forget to reconnect the battery like I did. It makes a big difference. But then, even with the battery connected, the display still wouldn't turn on, yet the rest of the bike clearly had power.
So, did I just not plug the display in properly when I put the headlight assembly back on? Or is the battery just not charged enough to power the display? 13 volts. That should be plenty to power the display.
So with all fingers pointing to the display, I made my way to its connector to see if maybe I hadn't plugged it in properly.
It looked fine, so I'm just going to do the old unplug it and plug it back in trick. Oh, there's a light on the dash now. That's a good sign, right? And a click. You heard the click? Let's try again. I'm a little more hopeful because you can see the light flashing here, so I think that means it acknowledges the key, so let's try. There we go. Now it's coming to life.
Which brings us to step 3, cranking the engine over until oil starts flowing out of the oil filter where we've loosened it off.
Is that enough?
Having never done this before, I kept cranking because I had no idea if that was enough, and then finally completed step 4, retightening the oil filter.
In theory, it should build oil pressure now because we've essentially primed the system. So I guess I should put the tank back together.
At least this job I've done before. I simply reconnected what I assume is the fuel level sensor, and then I could insert and bolt down the fuel pump along with the rear mounting bracket, and then a trim piece followed by the front mounting bracket. Once flipped over, the keyless fuel cap has a wire that has to be fed through the tank before it gets bolted into place, and then back on the bike, all the regular hoses and plugs can be reconnected. But right away, it didn't look like the priming process had worked. I waited a few seconds, hoping it would go away, but after having a look in the sight glass, I could see that the oil level hadn't dropped as it should.
Does turning it off and on again in this situation help? There's only one way to find out.
Apparently, Triumphs are as simple-minded as I am, because that actually worked. Now all I had was a check engine light, as well as low fuel and low key battery warning. I then let it run for a decent amount of time so that the oil could flow throughout the engine and hopefully bring any metal flakes down to the sump where we can easily drain them.
Well, that's the longest this thing has run since I think it was June last year. It seems happier, so now we can move on to flushing it again and again and again. And now that the oil has circulated the engine and we've got it nice and warm, we drain it again. Such a waste, brand new oil. Oh well, cheaper than buying a new engine. And while that drains, I've got this cheap Shell Helix oil to fill the bike up and drain it like that again another 2 times. And then after that, we'll put the expensive oil in to actually ride it. This feels so wrong, and I know this is the accepted color for oil, but I'm sure the fact that Motul is red makes it faster. This is just trickling now, so I think it's okay to put the drain plug back in and refill it. Because after all, we're going to do it another 2 times. We don't even need to make this tight because we're going to use it in a few seconds. If it leaks, it's not the end of the world, right? It's not like I'm going to ride it. And in goes the cooking oil. We're going to need about 3 of these. And the one thing they don't tell you about funnels when you buy them is that you should choose your funnel based on how easy it is to clean. I just had to clean this one before using it, and it was a nightmare. Which is why I usually don't use a funnel and just pour oil down the side of the engine instead. It's easier to clean a bike than a funnel. I'm going to be really good at oil changes on a speed triple after this. I just hope we don't have the same low oil pressure problem again, although now we know how to fix it.
But even optimism didn't help.
Low oil pressure warning again, so I'm going to turn it off and on again like last time because that worked before I crack the oil filter, because that's a little bit more work.
That only seemed to work the first time though, so I performed the priming process again, but this time I thought I could skip a step.
Pro tip, if you just disconnect the fuel line and not the fuel pump connectors, when you turn the ignition on, it just sprays fuel everywhere. Not my proudest moment, but now that it's cleaned up, let's try and do this again. And I smell like fuel. Lovely. Priming. draining the last of the cheap oil going in. Priming.
I also tried leaning the bike side to side just in case it helps get the oil into any crevices, as well as varying the RPMs to increase the oil pressure. I have no idea if this actually makes a difference in getting metal flakes down to the sump, but it doesn't hurt to try.
Okay, and this is the final time we're going to lose oil pressure. Drain the oil. This time it even gets a new crush washer. Give it a little bit of used oil around there. Crush it appropriately. And this time, this oil filter is coming off for good. Ew, and the seal is stuck to it. Interesting. And we're replacing it with a new genuine one. Always give it some oil around the seal. I've seen mixed opinions on pre-filling the filter on this bike, but I think since we're gonna have to prime it anyway, what's the point? So I'm not even gonna tighten it all the way now because you know the drill of priming this thing, it's annoying. Now, before we fill it with nice oil, I want to take another look at the sump to see if any more metal came down into the sump or see if there's any metal caught in the oil strainer, which means all of this has to come off, starting with the radiator, which means we have to drain the coolant. I always forget the cap, which is under the airbox, because this is a great bike. Why do you make everything so difficult, Triumph? From changing the oil that needs priming to just draining the coolant, and the coolant cap is nowhere to be found. Put this back in for now, I guess. Even with all of this, it's still nicer to work on than the Honda was.
Personally, I think the radiator is a great place to put a radiator cap, but maybe I'm just old school like that. I was also taught to run a bike after topping up the coolant to bleed any air bubbles out of the system, which is impossible when the filler cap is under the airbox.
Okay, so there is the radiator cap, and this is a mission to get on and off. So I'm gonna try and remove it as little as possible. And while I was in here, I quickly lifted up the ECU because I'm pretty sure I know what the check engine light is for. This is the little tube that connects to one of the sensors on the airbox, and it was hidden under the ECU, so I couldn't plug that in.
It accidentally got lost under the ECU during the frame swap, by the way.
Funny enough, this is the same reason I had a check engine light on the Honda, so at least I've learned my lesson. I found the tube, we're gonna get it in place, and I'm pretty confident the check engine light will be gone now. Okay, I think I can loosen the radiator cap without removing the airbox, and I think I could fill it, but I'm not sure if I could ever get the cap back on. But I'm gonna try because this is still less painful than getting the intake rubber in place on the airbox. Come on, it's loose, I just can't get it off now. Okay, there we go, 1 times radiator cap. The pressure should be released so we can drain it now, but I accidentally dislodged the rubber after all of that. I don't think I've ever successfully drained coolant without making a mess. Then after a few more bolts and 2 hoses, we can get the radiator out of the way so that we can access the header bolts. And you guessed it, the connector for the radiator fans is underneath the airbox. So we're just gonna hang it up out of the way here and pour more coolant all over the floor. At least the floor's getting a wash at the same time. I'm sure coolant has good detergents in it. Then with all of those removed, as well as the O2 sensor, which I always forget, we should be able to wiggle the headers off like that. And that is the last thing between me and the sump. Okay, and 1,000,000 bolts, but we're closer. Let's also tip it over like you're gonna clean the underside of a dirt bike to make everything a bit easier to access. And obviously to get more coolant out. There can't be much left, can there? And there it is, the sump. Now, if I remember correctly, I think I had to remove the wire from the starter motor to get all of these wires out of the way because they're attached to the sump. Put this nut back where we found it so we don't lose it. Then there's some brackets for the belly pan like this, which is obviously a different size socket. It's the same on the other side. And that is all of the wires out of the way. Now there are just 20 of these bolts to remove and the sump should pop off. And there we go. And immediately a big piece of metal. So I'm glad we did this.
and a few little ones. So at least we can see the metal has come down, and we're going to clean it out. You can see that there are metal flakes in the bottom of the sump there, unfortunately. And here is the big piece that I found right away. Obviously, this isn't what you want to find in your engine, but since I did find it, it makes me happier that I came looking for it, because now I can at least clean it out. And the truth is that I've never done this before, so this engine could kill itself in the next few months of riding it, but this is the only way to learn, and I'm not just going to throw it away without trying to save it. It's only done 5,000 kilometers. And then it's just one bolt to get this oil pump strainer off, and we can have a look inside of that.
To my relief, it looked spotless in there, which at least means that the oil pump hasn't attempted to suck up any metal pieces and distribute them throughout the engine.
And here is what the sump looks like now that I've cleaned that out as well. So, with that done, let's put this back together, I think.
Reinstalling the sump, headers and radiator was pretty quick, since this is the second time I've done it. But unfortunately, not every job is like that, because after all of that, I ended up having to completely remove the airbox to fill up the coolant. But this time with real coolant, not just distilled water. And of course, not forgetting to empty and refill the expansion tank as well. Fortunately, getting that intake rubber back in place wasn't quite as miserable as I expected.
Okay, 3 days later, I got the seal and all the hoses in place. Now we can put a few bolts in and put it back together. Of course, we need an air filter and the cover. This time it gets higher quality oil. Oil I would actually trust to rev to 11,500 RPM. But I still don't think I'm going to do the full service interval on it. Obviously, I will change the oil sooner just to be safe, but this is a good start. And we need 3.3 liters of this after changing the filter as well. And you guessed it, we're going to have to prime the system again, which I'm really sick and tired of doing.
But after all that, we're left with a running engine that I have 89% confidence in.
Okay, I think I've done everything that I can do for the engine apart from rebuilding it. The next step is just to ride it and see if it grenades itself. So that means we can move on to changing out the pistons in the brake caliper, because I now have an official Brembo piston and seal kit to rebuild that caliper properly without glue. So first we need to get this caliper off of the bike, and luckily these bolts are still loose because I knew this day was coming. Try and do it without scratching our new wheel. There we go. Oh, whoever did that up was really strong. I think the easiest way is just to take the caliper off of the bike entirely, but I'm going to do it over a tub because I'm going to get brake fluid everywhere. I had also never noticed before working on this bike that Brembos like these have the bleed nipple and the banjo bolt all in one piece, in one bolt. I've never actually changed seals in a brake caliper before, but I assume the first place to start is just by getting the brake pads out, which so far is easier said than done. There's one, there's two. So this is the piston that was the worst. This is the one that popped out and got scratched along the way and that I tried to repair. So technically we only have to replace this one, but you can see that all the other ones have little marks or scratches on them that wouldn't necessarily cause any damage, but because we have 4 replacement ones, I think we should change them. But I might only do the seals in this one just because it's easier. So now we have to get these pistons out of the caliper. And I think the best way is compressed air. The cool part is that it doesn't actually matter if we damage these pistons while taking them out because we have replacements. But either way, I'm just going to put this piece of flat bar in the middle here so that when we push the pistons out, they don't hit each other. There we go, we got 2 to move. Keep doing that, I guess. Another one moving. Ooh. Okay, there we go. The main culprit is already out. 1, 2, 3. Oh, this one's a stubborn one. And 4, there we go. I didn't even have to use pliers and damage them further. So it's these seals in this pot that need to be replaced. They honestly look and feel fine, but I think I'm going to replace it just to be sure. You guys know how I like to do things properly, not with glue. I'm going to start by trying to get these seals out just with a pick. Oh, and that was actually really easy. They look more difficult to get out, but that was just the dust seal. This one might be harder. Not even. I'm already under it. Oh. Just like that. It honestly looks brand new. I mean, they've done just over 5,000 kilometers, but we'll replace it. They even give you assembling fluid. I was going to use brake fluid, but let's use that. I can't open it because of all the brake fluid on my fingers, but it was a nice thought. One dust seal. One real seal. I feel like putting it in is going to be more challenging than it was to get it out. Line her up. Oh, and it's in just like that. I honestly have been dreading this task since I got it because I really thought it would be more difficult than that, but it's actually really quick and easy. Well done, Brembo. Oh, there we go. Just like that. I feel like we should do all of them just because we're here. And there we go, a few minutes later and all the new seals are in. There are the old ones. So now we can put some assembly fluid on the pistons and slot those in. This is so much easier and faster than I was expecting. 1. This is a really messy job though. 2. 3. And my finger's stuck. And 4. Actually, it needs a wash now. It's all cleaned up, the pads are back in. Now we just need to bleed the system once again. I guess I should take the cap off of the reservoir then. Top it up. I'm getting a little bit of pressure in the lever already. So now I'm going to create a vacuum with my strange pump thing. And open the bleed nipple and it should all come pouring into here and get all the air out. Okay, maybe not in one go, but that was a good start.
Truth be told, I'm not convinced that the vacuum pump makes any difference, but at least it's fun to play with. I resorted to the old-fashioned bleeding method after a bit, and
there we go. We still have a few more odd jobs to complete before we can get to the fun stuff of putting all the bodywork on and taking it for a ride, like this scratch on the headlight. It is very visible, but it isn't deep. It seems like it's just on the surface. And to be honest, I have no idea how to fix this. I do have this polishing pad that goes on a drill and some headlight polish. So I think I'm going to try that and hopefully it just comes off easily. Let's just put a bit of this on here. How much do you think is the right amount? That looks perfect. Then we're just going to get it everywhere slowly. That looks good, right? Now you can't even see the scratch. Okay, I think this is going to make a mess. I was right. I should probably have taped off this piece of the headlight. Oh well.
I should probably preface this with the fact that my only experience doing this was on an old shitbox car with a blown head gasket.
I can't even see if it's working because it's so messy.
But at least the headlights looked good.
Okay, I think let's wipe it off and see if it's having any effect before we go too hard and damage it. The housing still looks fine, so that's good. That might have been too much polish. It's still there, but it does look lighter. Maybe it's just my imagination. Let's go again. Let's put it straight on the wound. It is still there, but it is getting lighter. Shall we have one more go? I'm getting polish everywhere. Okay, I think that's as good as it's going to get. Mostly because I don't want to damage it. But it does look a little bit better. You can't see it, but unless you're looking for it, I don't think you'll see it now. So I'm calling that a win. It also has quite a bit of rust on the chain here. So all I'm going to do is hit it with some WD-40 and this little wire brush. The only thing you want to be careful of is not to damage the O-rings. You can also use steel wool. I used that on my MT-09 and it worked really well, but it does make more of a mess. And now when we wipe it away, most of it is gone and it looks a lot better. There is some pitting, but for the most part, that looks good. I'm going to keep going.
This bike must have been left outdoors at some point, judging by the rusty chain. Sometimes chains like this are too far gone and just need to be replaced. This chain isn't weakened in any way, but definitely looks ugly.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of pitting in that a wire brush isn't going to get off, but it's worth a try. I think this area is just dirt, it's not even rust. So this should come off. Oh yeah, that's much prettier. I'm guessing this side was at the bottom when I was sleeping outside and it just got a lot of dirt on it. The good thing about having dirt on it is it almost protects it from the rust. So the clean parts are the rusted parts and the dirty parts are just dirty. And there you have it. Is it perfect? Not even close. Is it the whole chain? No, this is only one side, but it's a good start. I think I'm officially done playing with the rear wheel, taking it on and off, which means I can torque it. But there is a problem. You see, this nut has to be torqued to 250 Newton meters, and my torque wrench only goes up to 230, but it's okay. I have a plan. Step one is to try and get it to click at 210. I think even that's going to be challenging. I should probably take it off the stand. Let's put it in gear. Oh, someone covered the wheel in WD-40. That was smart. That already feels tight. This poor nut. Oh, I did it. I actually got it to click. Okay, step one is complete. Now we just keep tugging on it until I assume it gets to 250, and then at some point we take it to Triumph and get them to check it.
So obviously I had to assume a very flattering position to get it over 230 Newton meters.
I genuinely can't get it any tighter than that. I'd need a longer lever. So I think now we can put the exhaust on as well, but the hanger for this is the passenger foot pegs, and they're still on the old subframe.
I know they're not very pretty, but they keep the wife happy.
And unfortunately, we're keeping the stock silencer because we went over budget on everything else. There's no clamp on that, and that's because the guy who crashed this had an aftermarket pipe. He took that after the accident, and they obviously put this on as quickly as possible, and they didn't put the clamp back on. There's also no bolt for this hanger, so I'm gonna have to donate one. And we're gonna have to ride it without a clamp here in the meantime. And if a clamp costs the same amount as an aftermarket silencer, we're in luck. I think you know which one I'm gonna choose. There's also this little cover that goes on, and there's this cover too that slots on here. Even just with all of this on, it already looks more sophisticated. But now's the fun part. We get to put everything else on.
Starting with the undertail trim piece, which I quickly realized has to go on after the two body panels on the side of the tail. But then the undertail, along with the tail tidy, could be bolted into place.
I think the eyebrows are my favorite part, and they should be relatively quick and easy to put on. There's just these clips that I packaged really nicely, aptly named. And I think these just press on the back here, like that. And now they should just clip in like this. That looks awesome. I don't know why you would want a fly screen that covers this up. Such good eyebrows.
Since we should be finished, needing access underneath the tank, we can install its trim pieces and bolt it down for good, although that might be jinxing things. And then my throne can be installed onto the new subframe for the first time.
And of course, we have a rear seat as well. This was one that I had to buy because it was missing a rear seat when I got it. And I just realized that it doesn't seem to clip in place. It looks like you have to bolt it to the bike. I've never seen a passenger seat like that in my life. I don't have a bolt. I didn't even have a seat when I got the bike. But of course, we've got another option as well, the seat cowl. That's going to look really cool, but we have to reassemble it first. So let's see what option 2 looks like. I'll be honest, I'm probably going to use the seat because I usually ride around with a camera backpack that will rub against this and scratch it, even though there's this nice rubber trim piece. But that That looks really cool. These little shield looking things hold the indicator and attach to the side of the radiator. So this is the right hand side one as I got it on the bike, and unfortunately it's all scratched and the indicator is destroyed. So I got a new one, but it also had a slight scratch in it, so I just got them painted black, and I think they're actually going to look better in black. I also bought a brand new indicator, which is this one, but unfortunately I just realized that the left indicator is also all scratched. But luckily they're not difficult to get to and to swap out, so as soon as I buy a new one I can just fit it, but I'm going to use this in the meantime because I want to ride it. And now we just plug them in and bolt them up. And whenever you're bolting something into a radiator, you always want to use an impact and just go as fast as you can, because nothing could go wrong.
From then on, it was straightforward. More trim pieces had to be reattached to the remaining painted panels before they could be put back on the bike, slowly but surely adding more yellow and looking more like a real bike. And the final parts to go on were Triumph's signature bar end mirrors along with bar ends. And I was also able to get rid of one error, which was the low key fob battery.
And that is it. It honestly doesn't feel real that I can just go out and ride it right this second. But before we do that, there are still two things I want to do. Firstly, I want to see these two together, because I think the blue and the yellow is going to look really cool next to each other. And sometimes you just have to appreciate the beautiful bikes in your workshop.
This makes it even more sad that one of these bikes needs to go to pay for the next project. But secondly, I gave the Triumph its first ever wash, at least in my workshop, to get any oil and coolant off of it, especially off of the tires before riding it. Up until now, it's always had a hole in the engine or exposed throttle bodies, stopping me from cleaning it properly.
So it's got a brand new frame, a new but second-hand subframe, as well as the passenger seat, both rider foot pegs, a new crank cover here. Obviously the engine was flushed. We've got a brand new radiator, a second-hand shield, as well as the indicator. This caliper was rebuilt. These discs are second-hand all the way from the UK, a new front wheel. The forks were rebuilt, a brand new carbon fiber mudguard, as well as all of these brackets. And around the other side, we've got new bar end mirrors on each side. And even this little joystick is secondhand and has been replaced. Then of course, we got rid of all the dents on the tank, and the whole bike has been resprayed. I'm sure that I'm forgetting something, but this is the result. And I think it looks absolutely brilliant, and the yellow really pops in the sun. But let's see if it can survive a shakedown ride, because from my limited experience, I've learned that there are often a few teething problems after rebuilding a bike like this. So let's see if it will survive a shakedown ride, or if it'll leave me stranded on the side of the road. Service overdue, low fuel. Then we start it and it gives us a check engine. Check the engine. We'll check it. This is the suspension test. It feels like suspension. I know you've seen some people do like track tests to test the suspension. That is in fact the wrong way. You just need a sidewalk that's very bumpy. He wants to play. V6 versus half a V6.
I kind of know what to expect since I rode the new 2025 model a few weeks ago, but I was still surprised by how smooth these bikes are. And the first stop was the fuel station, since the fuel gauge was on empty.
I just want to stop here and check a few things. The bad news is that our fuel gauge doesn't work, but I think it's just because it's been installed wrong, which is annoying.
Now that I knew I couldn't trust the fuel gauge, I kept going. I made sure to keep the coolant temperature on the screen just in case, but that wasn't my next issue. Instead, the quick shifter wasn't working. I'd made sure it was turned on in the settings menu back at the fuel station, and it was switched on. but every time I toggled it on or off, I got a transmission failure screen flash on the dash for a split second. However, shifting normally with the clutch felt perfect. Yet another issue was all in my head.
The safest way to ride is how I always ride, but there is this weird sort of voice in the back of my head saying the last time this bike was ridden, it was crashed, and that really messes with me for some reasons.
A much more real problem was the brakes. I think they need to be bled a bit more, as well as the new pads and discs need to bed in.
Let's put her here. Well done, Triumph, you made it. You've got a few warning lights, your brakes aren't great, there's no quick shifter, but you made it, you didn't break down, and I am proud of you. Look at you. You look stunning.
Now, I'm pretty sure that most Triumph fans prefer the understated colors like this bike used to be, but personally, I love this obnoxious bright yellow. So is it perfect? No. It still has a tiny little dent in the header here from the accident. Over on the foot of the fork, there are still some scratches from where that broken brake disc was rubbing. Moving further back, the cover for the exhaust valve here is missing, as well as the cables, but it's not super important. One thing that makes me really upset is this little tear in the rider seat here. It's very small, but I really don't like it. I obviously already told you about the indicators on the front that both need to be replaced. And down here, the stator cover has scratches on it here, but they weren't, or it isn't leaking, so I didn't think it needed to be replaced, at least not for a shakedown ride. There are other minor imperfections, like the clutch lever has a scuff on it here, and we can't forget that we have a check engine light that I haven't figured out yet, and now the quick shifter doesn't seem to be working. But did I get a 2023 Super Naked for really cheap in the end? Well, no. I kind of lost track of what I spent on it, but that was kind of on purpose because it got a bit out of hand. But it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $11,300, which unfortunately is about the same price as you can just go and buy one second hand. So financially, it definitely was not worth it. But we did get this beautiful bike back up and running and back on the road. And to be honest, as long as I don't lose too much money when I sell it, I'm happy, but I'm still trying to figure out how to make this game profitable. But anyway, let me know if you think breaking even on a project like this is worth it, or if it was just a waste of time. And I'll see you on the next ride.